Picture this scenario. You open your phone and just casually start scrolling. And within like 5 minutes, you get hit with this triple whammy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it happens every single time.
Right. First, it's a close friend's gorgeous engagement photos.
Really?
Then, a former coworker announces this massive, life-changing promotion. And finally, a relative posts that classic photo of themselves holding the keys in front of a perfectly lit, brand new house.
Always perfectly lit.
Always. And you're genuinely happy for them. You truly want them to succeed. But almost instantly, this silent scoreboard opens up in your head.
Yeah, your stomach just drops.
Exactly. Your chest tightens, and suddenly you feel like you're losing a race you didn't even know you were running.
It's just such a remarkably universal experience, that sudden, frantic mental calculus where you cross-examine your own life against everyone else's highlight reels.
It's exhausting.
It is. And we talk so much about the anxiety of modern life, but we rarely examine the crushing psychological weight of feeling chronically behind.
Which is exactly what our deep dive is about today.
Right.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Vibrations and Manifestation. For everyone listening, I'm Jared.
And I'm Alicia.
Right, so we are going to figure out why you might feel late, decode this fake invisible scoreboard we all use to judge ourselves, and offer a radical framework for reclaiming your personal timeline.
But, I mean, knowing the scoreboard is fake doesn't magically stop it from hurting.
No, it really doesn't.
To figure out why these external comparisons get under our skin so deeply, we first have to understand the biological and, well, the psychological necessity that built the scoreboard in the first place.
Which brings us to Leon Festinger's 1954 social comparison theory. Festinger identified that human beings have this fundamental evolutionary drive to evaluate their own abilities.
Because in our ancestral past, knowing your rank in the tribe literally kept you alive. If you didn't know where you stood, you couldn't secure resources.
Right, so today, we still have that hardwired drive, but adulthood lacks a standardized grading rubric. I mean, there is no syllabus.
Nobody hands you an A- in navigating your 30s.
Exactly. Because we lack objective, measurable standards for success, our brains just default to the next available metric, which is our peers.
Yeah, we use the people around us as human measuring sticks to calculate our own survival value.
And to really bring this to life, I know you recently had an experience that just perfectly illustrates this. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, I do. It was actually a few months ago. I went to a close friend's housewarming party. And, I walked in, and it's this beautiful, sunlit, just thoughtfully decorated space.
Sounds lovely.
It was. I brought a gift. I was genuinely so happy for her. But then, while we're standing in the kitchen, someone just casually asked me, "So are you thinking about buying soon?"
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that question, it just acted as a massive trigger for my nervous system.
It completely reboots you.
Totally. The question wasn't meant to be cruel, but instantly, this internal scoreboard lit up. I became just sharply aware of my uneven career path, my dwindling savings account, the fact that I still rent a pretty cramped apartment.
It's like a sudden spotlight on all your insecurities.
Exactly. By the time I got to my car to drive home, the housewarming had become a trial. I was mentally prosecuting my entire life, calculating how much time I had lost, and, placing myself at the absolute bottom of the rankings.
That is so painful, but also so deeply relatable. I think everyone listening has had a moment exactly like that.
Yeah, and that feeling of exposure is supercharged in the modern era because of what researchers call incomplete data sets.
What does that mean, practically?
Well, when you're scrolling online or even chatting at a party, you are comparing your messy, behind-the-scenes reality, the doubts, the debt, the 3 a.m. panic, with someone else's highly curated highlight reel.
You're comparing your daily blooper reel to their Oscar-winning trailer.
Right. And mathematically, you are always going to lose that comparison.
And on top of that, the very definition of adulthood is shifting beneath our feet right now. The sources reference developmental psychologist Jeffrey Jensen Arnett.
He's the one who researches what he calls emerging and established adulthood, right?
Yes, covering ages 30 to 45. Arnett proves that the sixth sequence of milestones like marriage, house, kids, career is actually a historical anomaly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you look at the 1950s, the blueprint was rigid because the post-war economy and social structures demanded it. Today, we're balancing career consolidation, relationships, and reinvention well into our 40s and beyond.
So we are trying to overlay a mid-century industrial-era blueprint onto a modern, digital-era life.
Exactly. So it's not that we are failing the test, it's that we're using an outdated answer key.
That makes so much sense.
But I want to push back on this framing just a little bit. Isn't some level of comparison deeply functional? Like if I see a friend buy a house, doesn't that light a fire under me to get my act together? Fear can be a fantastic motivator.
Well, fear is a fantastic short-term motivator, but it's a terrible long-term architect.
Okay, say more about that.
Motivation built on humiliation or this feeling of deficiency, it usually leads to rushed, inauthentic choices. You take a job you hate just because the title sounds impressive to your parents.
Or you rush into a relationship because you feel the clock ticking.
Exactly. You end up building a life for the scoreboard, not for yourself.
Which is an incredibly fragile way to live.
It really is. To counter that fragility, the psychological research introduces this concept called social savoring.
Social savoring, I like that.
It's the practice of experiencing genuine joy for another person's progress without weaponizing it against yourself. So, you celebrate the friend's new house without making it a verdict on your own worth.
Which sounds beautiful, but is incredibly difficult when you're in the thick of feeling inadequate.
Oh, totally. It's so hard.
And this is where the sources make a fascinating pivot. Because to understand how to stop weaponizing other people's success, we have to look at how our brains process these events.
Right.
This brings us to the core spiritual philosophy, which are the teachings of Neville Goddard.
Goddard was this prominent mid-century mystic and author in his books Infinite States and The Power of Awareness.
And he posits something pretty radical.
Very radical. He says that being behind is not an objective fact about your life. It is a state of consciousness.
Let's break down what a state actually is, because Goddard isn't just talking about, like, a passing bad mood.
No, not at all. He defines a state as an organized identity. It contains your assumptions, your emotional baseline, and your expectations.
Okay.
So when you occupy the state of the one whose life never quite arrives, every single event in your life is filtered through that specific identity to confirm its reality.
So a state acts more like a spam filter in an email inbox.
Yes.
It's an algorithm.
Yes, exactly.
If your core identity is, I am falling behind, your brain flags any evidence of your success or progress as spam and just hides it from your awareness.
Right.
Meanwhile, it prioritizes every piece of bad news, every peer's promotion, and sends it straight to your main inbox to confirm your bias.
That algorithm analogy hits the nail on the head. In neuroscience, this is actually closely related to the reticular activating system, or RAS.
Oh yeah, the RAS.
Your brain processes millions of bits of information a second, and it has to delete most of it just to save energy. It only shows you what you have programmed it to look for.
So the event itself is neutral.
Completely neutral. That question at the housewarming party, are you thinking about buying soon, does not inherently contain a verdict.
The verdict comes entirely from the algorithm processing it.
Right. If you're in a secure state, that question sounds like friendly curiosity. But if your internal algorithm is scanning for threats, it sounds like an indictment of your entire existence.
Which brings us to, I think, the most mind-bending concept. Because if your algorithm is prioritizing your failures, the logical fix seems to be achieving the milestone. But reaching a milestone changes your circumstances. It does not change your state.
That is just a brutal realization. You spend years grinding to achieve the thing, thinking it will finally grant you peace.
But if you buy the house and you remain in the internal state of being the one who is behind, the scoreboard simply shifts the goalposts.
Because your brain's algorithm hasn't changed.
Right. You'll move in, unpack your boxes, immediately think, well, my friends bought bigger homes, or they bought in a better neighborhood.
Or, I have a house, but I am still unmarried. Winning one category doesn't end the race.
We are just chasing a horizon that keeps receding. So if achieving a milestone doesn't cure the underlying state of feeling behind, how do we actually rewrite the algorithm before the milestone arrives?
It starts with diagnosing why you want the milestone in the first place. You have to distinguish between genuine desire and borrowed desire.
Borrowed desire being what? Running away from shame.
Exactly. You want the house so people have something impressive to judge you by at parties.
Whereas genuine desire is moving toward a core value. Like you want a home because you value stability. You want a place to host your family, a place where you can paint the walls whatever color you want without asking a landlord.
Yes. Goddard's methodology for aligning with that genuine value is a practice called living from the fulfilled end. And to be super clear here, this is not about visualizing a vision board where you defeat your peers.
Right, because imagining yourself beating your peers just reinforces the existence of the scoreboard.
Exactly. Living in the end is about identifying the core feeling beneath the milestone. So instead of visualizing a set of house keys, you ask yourself, What do I believe those keys will finally allow my nervous system to feel?
You're trying to identify feelings like being settled or secure
Yeah.
or at home in your own life.
Yes, and then you practice inhabiting that state, giving your body the experience of safety right now. You become familiar with the identity of someone whose life is already in motion, rather than someone who is constantly waiting for public proof that their life has started.
I love that. And Goddard pairs this internal shift with another concept called the appointed hour.
This is such a helpful concept.
It really is. It's the natural interval between choosing a direction and actually seeing the external result. The sources use the analogy of a seed. When you plant a seed, it has an appointed hour to sprout.
The seed isn't a failure just because you can't see the green sprout breaking the soil the very next morning. There's an unfinished middle.
Right. And for adults, when we're in that unfinished middle, saving for the down payment, applying for jobs, going on endless first dates, we tend to use the delay as proof that we chose wrong or that we are inherently flawed.
The appointed hour teaches us to just trust the interval.
Okay, but trusting the interval sounds beautiful in theory. I have a major practical concern here, though.
Okay, what is it?
Does living in the end mean I just sit on my couch, pretend I am a homeowner, and totally ignore my bank account?
Mm-hmm.
The bank doesn't take fulfilled states of consciousness as a mortgage payment.
Right.
How does this survive contact with the real world?
Trusting the appointed hour does not mean abandoning the clock.
Okay, good.
Goddard's philosophy is not a substitute for medical advice, financial planning, or submitting job applications.
It is not magical thinking.
Not at all. It means taking those entirely responsible actions without using the unfinished middle as evidence of your failure. You don't pretend you own a house and spend money you don't have.
Right.
You inhabit the internal state of self-respect, and from that state of clarity, you budget responsibly. Avoidance disguised as spiritual faith is still just avoidance.
Wow, yes. You don't persist by gripping the future. You persist by returning to the state where honest, grounded action is possible.
Exactly.
So how do we practically step off this scoreboard in our daily lives? A few specific actionable tools to rewire our timeline.
Let's start with the Timeline State Audit.
Let's do it.
The audit asks you to look at the milestone you are agonizing over and question its origin. Who wrote the schedule you're failing to meet?
Was it a cultural norm?
Right. An economic expectation from your parents' generation. Or maybe a plan you made when you were 14 years old.
We hold ourselves hostage to these inherited blueprints. So if you are listening right now, I want you to just think about the one milestone that makes your stomach drop when someone else achieves it.
We're just going to take a breath together right now. Inhale. And let it out.
The audit forces you to figure out what you believe achieving this milestone will finally prove about you. Will it prove you're lovable, responsible, safe?
Once you know what you're trying to prove, you can start giving yourself that safety internally rather than waiting for external validation to grant it.
The second practical tool is tracking invisible progress.
This is the absolute core of the deep dive for me.
Me too. I want to talk directly to anyone listening who has spent the last year doing intense invisible work.
Yeah, maybe you spent the last 6 months unlearning a toxic habit.
Or learning how to effectively emotionally regulate. Or just surviving a deeply destabilizing season. Because there's no LinkedIn notification for healing your attachment style, you are telling yourself you achieved nothing this year.
We are so conditioned to only count the rings, the keys, and the certificates.
If you only measure your life by public announcements, you are completely ignoring your own structural growth. We do not throw parties for setting boundaries.
We really should, though.
We should.
Uh-huh.
But that invisible progress is the foundation that makes the visible milestones sustainable when they do finally arrive.
And if we look at the third tool, Goddard's technique called the pruning shears of revision, we get a mechanism for actively protecting that internal growth.
Revision is a mental practice where you revisit a painful comparison moment. So let's take your experience at the housewarming party.
Right. Okay. So before I go to sleep, I revisit that memory in my imagination, but I revise my internal response to it.
And to be clear, you aren't being delusional. You're not pretending the person never asked the question.
No, I'm not erasing history. I am changing the meaning I assign to it. From a neurological standpoint, this actually plays heavily on memory reconsolidation. When you pull up a memory, it becomes malleable. The brain struggles to differentiate between a deeply imagined emotion and a real one.
So in the revision, you imagine holding your glass, feeling the warm kitchen light, and hearing the question.
But instead of my nervous system shutting down with shame, My internal algorithm processes it differently. I feel relaxed. I answer calmly, without apology. I say, not immediately. I'm building toward a few things in my own order, and I feel good about it.
That is so powerful. By rewriting the emotional resonance of the memory, you stop that event from hardening into a permanent identity.
Exactly. I don't carry, everyone can see I'm failing into the next day. I can speak about my life without apologizing for it.
That fundamentally reframes what persistence actually means. It's not toxic positivity.
hmm
It's not about forcing yourself to never feel jealous again, which is impossible.
True persistence simply means noticing when your algorithm has started scanning the scoreboard again, acknowledging it, and gently returning to your own path.
You will feel jealous again. You will feel behind again. Persistence is just the act of coming back.
Just coming back.
Let's pull all of this together. We started with Festinger's realization that because adulthood has no syllabus, we use our peers as a survival grading system.
But as Goddard maps out, constantly looking at that scoreboard forces you into a state of consciousness where you are perpetually left behind. And your brain's algorithm will filter all evidence to prove that verdict true.
Achieving a milestone won't cure that state. The scoreboard just moves the goalposts. You have to leave the state first by identifying your genuine desire, trusting the unfinished middle of the appointed hour, and giving your nervous system the feeling of being at home right now.
All while taking responsible, grounded action in the real world. You do not have to catch up to become worthy of participating in your own life.
Another person's milestone is not a verdict on your timing. As we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over.
Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning and the social scoreboard has been permanently destroyed.
Nobody can see your achievements, and you cannot see theirs. Social media is wiped of milestones. There are no announcements, no comparisons.
Without an audience to perform for, and without a scoreboard to compare yourself against, what is the very first honest step you would take, purely for yourself?
At the end of the day, you aren't running on a marked track. The parameters were never real. There is no race. There is only your path. Keep taking the next honest step.